mythic brawler Ziggy is finally here, so here's a full guide on how to use him. Now I'll be covering Ziggy's unique mechanics and how he works, the best build that you should be using for Ziggy, and the best game modes for this electro wizard looking brawler. So stay tuned, okay? And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe because I'm on my way to 200,000 subscribers. So subscribe or you will turn into a Ziggy thunder thing, okay? Now Ziggy is currently the newest mythic brawler in the game, and he's a pretty interesting brawler with some unique mechanics. Ziggy is a controller brawler with 5,600 health at the max level. His main attack is extremely unique and also really complicated to use. You need to sort of predict your shots with his main attack because of how different his mechanics are. But yeah, his main attack, tada, pretty much summons a circle lightning strike, and that lightning strike will hit anyone who's in the circle and it will deal 1,900 damage. This attack also has a long range, so you can pretty much place the attack from a good distance. And for reference, this is the range of the attack. Now it's important to note that Ziggy's attack doesn't immediately shoot lightning. It actually takes a few seconds, as you can see. So enemies can technically dodge these lightning strikes because of that delay. So the best way to use this attack to sort of predict where the enemy is going and shoot the attack at that direction. You can also spam the attack in a bunch of different areas, so if enemies are keep on zigzagging around, just shoot your attack in a bunch of random places and hope that it hits someone. Keep in mind that Ziggy also has a pretty slow reload speed, which is honestly annoying, especially when enemies are pushing you and spam attacking you. Ziggy also has a pretty fast movement speed, so he can dodge attacks from thrower brawlers, for example. Now onto Ziggy's super, the Fantastical Storm. This super is crazy, bro. Ziggy pretty much summons this huge rectangle square ball thing, which is basically a lightning storm, I guess. And this thing travels at a slow pace across most of the map. And just look at how wide this thing is, bro. Enemies who are in the storm will take 1,400 damage continuously, so it is a pretty solid super in my opinion, especially in those smaller maps. Now overall, I personally think that Ziggy isn't really broken, and I think that Supercell needs to do some reworking for this brawler. Now they did buff his main attack damage from 1,760 to 1,900 in the recent balance changes, which is honestly a pretty good start. But I personally think that there's still some issues with this brawler. Firstly, I find it really difficult to hit his shots sometimes, especially in fast-paced matches, and that's because of the small radius of his attack. He also has a pretty slow reload speed, even though it says normal for some reason. Like if someone is pushing me and I use all three of my lightning attacks, it takes a fat minute for them to reload again, and I usually get whacked out of existence, okay? So my suggestions to make this brawler better is to either increase the radius of his lightning strike by a bit, that way his attacks can be a bit more accurate, or even make his reload speed a bit faster, bro. I will take that any day, okay? I think in terms of damage though, Ziggy is pretty balanced, but there's obviously some tweaks that need to be made to make this brawler even better. And yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, comment your favorite feature about Ziggy. So yeah, now that you know everything about Ziggy and his mechanics, here's a full breakdown of both his gadgets and star powers. And keep in mind that I'll also be covering the best build and game modes for Ziggy later in the video, so stay tuned, okay? Now Ziggy's first gadget, Electric Shuffle, pretty much summons a bunch of random Ziggy attacks, and these attacks spawn towards the nearest enemy for 5 seconds. Now these attacks go towards random places near the enemy, but you would be surprised to know that some of these attacks actually hit the enemy sometimes. And what's even better about this gadget is that none of these attacks cost any ammo, so you can casually spam your regular attack while these lightning strikes are randomly appearing for 5 seconds. This gadget also has a 13-second cooldown, so it doesn't take too long to get another one. Now Ziggy's second gadget, Now You See Me, is a bit of an interesting one. This gadget pretty much allows Ziggy's next attack to teleport him to the exact location of the attack. So if I activate my gadget and shoot my attack over here, for example, I'm literally gonna teleport to that location. This gadget is good for escaping from enemies who are literally chasing you down, because as Ziggy, you can't really do much at the close range against enemies. So this gadget is perfect to escape from these enemies. This gadget also has a 13-second cooldown, which isn't too bad. Alright, Ziggy's first star power, Thunderstruck, pretty much slows down enemies by 20% who are in Ziggy's super. Now this star power is pretty good because you'll easily be able to hit your normal attack on the enemies who are slowed down in the super. Enemies who are slowed down in the super will also take longer to escape, so they will continuously take 1,400 damage from your super, damage from your attacks, and even damage from your teammates as well. Now Ziggy's second star power, the Grey Ziggy, pretty much allows Ziggy's next main attack to do 18% more damage. Only if you hit the attack before though. And for reference, your ammo turns yellow while your attack turns orange, which indicates that your next attack will do 18% more damage. And if you keep on hitting your attack, the 18% damage boost will remain until you miss an attack. So you can see that I'm doing 18% more damage on the robot, but the moment I miss my attack, my streak is broken and I'm gonna have to start it up again. And a small bonus, I'll also be covering Ziggy's hypercharge, which will come into the game, I don't know when. Now Ziggy's hypercharge, the Grand Vortex, pretty much allows the super to return to him after reaching the max range. So the super pretty much goes as normal to the max range, and then it comes back again to the opposite direction, which is actually crazy, bro. But yeah, now that you know pretty much everything about this brawler, including the mechanics, star powers, and gadgets, it is now time for me to show you the greatest Ziggy build of all time. Now let me tell you something, this is the Ziggy build of all Ziggy builds, and you need to start using it because it's probably the best build for this brawler. But yeah, starting off with the gadget, I decided to choose the electric shuffle gadget. Now, I found this gadget to be extremely broken. It pretty much shoots Ziggy's attacks near an enemy for you, and it doesn't even cost any of your ammo. So you can literally activate this gadget, and while it's targeting an enemy, just spam your normal attack as well, and you'll be shooting a bunch of lightning strikes everywhere, bro. I wasn't really a fan of the teleporting gadget, to be honest. The only thing it was really useful for was escaping from enemies. This gadget, on the other hand, dude, a piece of art, bro. Now for the star power, I decided to choose a good old Ziggy star power. Honestly, just forget about the other star power, bro. The fact that the star power allows your next attack to do 18% more damage is actually crazy. What's even crazier is that you can start a streak and just keep on getting the 18% damage boost as long as you're hitting your enemies. I found the star power to be very useful because, to be quite honest, Ziggy's normal attack doesn't really do a crazy amount of damage. But with the star power, he gets a slight damage boost to his main attack, which allows him to do some serious damage to enemies. Literally, all you have to do is stand behind a wall and just spam attack your enemies. But yeah, for the first gear, I decided to go with the health gear. I'm not gonna lie, Ziggy is a pretty easy brawler to counter. Marksman brawlers can easily snipe you, especially if you're out in the open. A power 11 Ziggy only has 5,600 health, so you can literally get cooked by brawlers like Mina or pretty much any marksman brawler. The health gear will help you heal faster if you're ever in situations where you're taking a good amount of damage. In addition to the health gear, I decided to pair with the good old shield gear. Like I mentioned before, Ziggy only has 5,600 health, which honestly isn't that much. Brawlers like Mina can easily cook Ziggy because of his low health. With the shield gear, Ziggy will now have 6,500 health, which is so much better than 5,600 health, dude. I think that Ziggy can really use the extra health, which is why I put the shield gear as the second gear. And yeah, when Ziggy's hypercharge releases, definitely include that in this build because it will make Ziggy 10 times more broken. But yeah, now that you know the best build for Ziggy gaming, it is extremely important to know which game modes he's best in. The last thing that you want to do is play Ziggy in the incorrect game mode and lose a bunch of trophies or elo. So stay tuned because I tested Ziggy out in 7 of the main game modes, which are also included in ranked. So yeah, we're starting off strong with the good old classic gem grab. And I'm not gonna lie, Ziggy was actually a pretty solid pick in gem grab. A lot of gem grab maps have a decent amount of walls where Ziggy can just hide behind, and hiding behind these walls give you an advantage because you can literally just spam attack without getting cooked by marksman brawlers. Ziggy also has a good amount of range, so you can easily target enemies from the long range behind walls. Now if you're playing gem grab, I wouldn't recommend being the gem carrier as Ziggy. This is because Ziggy doesn't have a crazy amount of health. Also, if an enemy manages to catch up to you, it's really difficult to eliminate them at the close range, and you'll probably get cooked with all the gems. Now enemies do group up in the middle of the map sometimes when collecting gems, and this is a great opportunity to use your electric shuffle gadget and pair with your attack and just spam attack your enemies. 3v3 maps are also fairly small, so Ziggy's super can cover most of the map and easily hit enemies who are trying to escape. If you happen to find a gem grab map with a good amount of walls, take advantage and use Ziggy, okay? I've been playing most of my games with Ziggy in Brawl Ball, and this is probably the best game mode for him, along with another game mode that I'll talk about soon. Like I mentioned before, 3v3 maps aren't as big, so you can take advantage and use Ziggy's super and literally cook your enemies. His super is massive, by the way. Now, I wouldn't recommend playing aggro in Brawl Ball with Ziggy. Instead, you should keep a distance and just spam attack enemies from the long range. Now, because Ziggy isn't really a damage dealer or tanky brawler, it obviously wouldn't make sense to push into enemies with him. You should kind of treat Ziggy as a marksman brawler and keep a distance, and just spam attack your enemies just like that, dude. Especially in Brawl Ball. Alright, I played a few games with Ziggy in Solo Showdown, and the short answer is avoid this game mode, bro. First of all, Showdown maps are huge, so it would be very easy for enemies to dodge Ziggy's super, which basically makes his super kind of useless in Solo Showdown. Also, why is Solo Showdown filled with a bunch of Mina sweats? Every Solo Showdown game I've went into, there's always that one Mina that's just chasing me around. To be honest, Ziggy gets hard countered by Mina, and it's really difficult to hit your lightning strikes because Mina can easily dash away. I would definitely avoid Solo Showdown for Ziggy because he easily gets countered, and it's also Mina central, okay? Okay, Bounty was pretty decent, and Ziggy didn't do too bad in this game mode. My only concern concern is the fact that Bounty is filled with marksman sweat brawlers, and Ziggy can easily get whacked out of existence by these marksman brawlers. If there's a good amount of walls or bushes in the Bounty map though, you can definitely take advantage of that and use Ziggy. Basically, just keep a distance or camp behind a wall and just spam attack your enemies. Ziggy's gadget is also extremely helpful because of the auto-aiming attacks on the nearest enemy. Along with the gadget, you can just spam attack your shots against marksman brawlers and other brawlers and easily get that win. But be aware for open Bounty maps like this one with no walls. If you ever encounter that map, don't even bother using Ziggy because you're gonna have to play dodge the bullets game and don't get whacked out of existence game. Knockout is next, and again, Ziggy was also pretty decent in this game mode. It's honestly the same concept as Bounty. If you happen to find a map where there's a bunch of obstacles and bushes, you can definitely get away with getting a few wins with Ziggy. On the other hand, if it's an open knockout map with limited to no walls, you're probably better off using a different brawler because marksman brawlers will just whack you out of existence, okay? Now, the good news is that there's a lot of knockout maps with walls, so you should be chilling and you can easily get away with using Ziggy in this game mode. Heist is next on the list, and I would honestly avoid using Ziggy in this game mode. I feel like he's more of a liability in this game mode, and there's not really much that he can do. Like if enemies are attacking the heist safe, for example, you're basically forced to play Ziggy at a fairly close range, and as you already know, Ziggy is extremely difficult to play at the close range. You're better off just sitting in the corner doing nothing. On the other hand, if you're on the offense and attacking the safe, I feel like Ziggy doesn't do enough damage to the safe, and there's so many other brawlers that you can use which do enough damage. You're better off using brawlers like the legend himself, El Primus. But yeah, we are on to the final game mode, and that is Hot Zone. I personally thought that Ziggy was an extremely good pick for Hot Zone. Let me explain why. Now, as you guys know, Ziggy is a controller brawler, and he's literally really good at controlling the Hot Zone point. Every time there's a full stack of enemies on the Hot Zone point, you can literally use Ziggy's super, and they will all run off the Hot Zone point instantly. That is because Ziggy's super is so wide, bro. The build that I showed in this video honestly works perfectly in Hot Zone. Star Power allows Ziggy's next attacks to do more damage, and the gadget basically auto-aims Ziggy's attacks near enemies. Enemies are usually grouped up close on the Hot Zone point, so what you can do is just pop the gadget and spam attack the middle if you don't have your super. And once you have your super, well, just super the Hot Zone point and everyone will run away. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, click on this video to see a full guide on how to use Trunk in Brawl Stars.